a dying swordswoman has entered Chen Ping'an's home. A mysterious Daoist knows far more about his fate than he is willing to reveal. And for the first time, Chen Ping'an learns that the danger threatening his life may have destroyed something even greater than his future. But he is not the only one standing at the edge of destiny. Across the town, ancient treasures are being traded, powerful cultivators are making secret bargains, and hidden opportunities are beginning to choose their masters. Some will rise, some will lose everything, and some secrets were never meant to be uncovered. Welcome to Sword Comes, Episode 4. Chen Ping'an stood frozen in place. The young Daoist stared at him as well. "What are you standing there for? Carry the young lady inside and put her on the bed." Without changing expression, Chen Ping'an asked, "And then?" The Daoist answered as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "First, of course, you change her into a clean set of clothes. After that, go to the apothecary and buy a few herbs to restore her qi and nourish her foundation. When the time comes, this humble Daoist will personally step in and show his skill." Chen Ping'an's face darkened. "When she wakes up, is there any chance she'll beat me to death?" The young Daoist declared with absolute certainty, "No, you're her life-saving benefactor. How could anyone in this world repay kindness with betrayal?" Chen Ping'an said nothing. The Daoist coughed. His confidence abruptly dropped. "Probably not?" Chen Ping'an sighed and ventured. "There's a girl next door named Jigui. Could we ask her to do it?" The young Daoist said helplessly, "No, that is precisely the problem." Chen Ping'an did not insist. He squatted on the ground and scratched his head with both hands. The young Daoist suddenly asked, "Is there anything you want to ask? Go ahead. This humble Daoist may not be able to clear up every doubt you have, but I'll answer whatever I can. How about it?" Chen Ping'an sighed, stood up, and said, "Save her first." The Daoist beamed. "Good." With a quiet flick of his sleeve, he firmly suppressed the restless flying sword inside its sheath. Chen Ping'an carried the girl into the house and gently laid her on the wooden bed, which had a quilt spread over it. Liu Xianxia had once broken one of the bed planks by sitting on it, and Chen Ping'an had only recently repaired it. A small bench had been wedged beneath the frame for support. The young Daoist followed him inside and glanced around. 4 bare walls, nothing more. He slapped his forehead, stepped outside to fetch paper and brush, and prepared to write a prescription for the boy to take to an apothecary. When he returned, the Daoist shook his head and deliberately avoided looking toward the bed. He thought to himself that this poor boy was probably doomed now. Chen Ping'an was sitting on the edge of the bed. He had already removed the black-clad girl's face veil, revealing a pale face streaked with dried blood. Bleeding from the 7 apertures was probably the best way to describe what lay before him. Chen Ping'an quickly stood. First, he moved a stool from beside the table to the bedside. Then he hurried to a corner of the room. There stood a small wooden washstand with a basin. Beside it was a water jar covered with a board to keep out flies and mosquitoes. The water had been drawn from Iron Lock Well in Apricot Blossom Alley. He took the basin and a dipper, crouched beside the jar, quickly scooped out fresh water, draped a clean cotton cloth over the rim, then carried everything to the bedside. Setting the basin on the stool, he began wiping the dried blood from the girl's face. The young Daoist turned and pointed outside. "There's a small herbal shop on Fortune and Prosperity Street. Take this prescription and get the medicine." Chen Ping'an looked puzzled. "Didn't you say earlier?" The young Daoist blinked innocently. "Yes. This humble Daoist said that when you buy the medicine, you must be discreet. Don't make a spectacle of yourself and draw attention, or rumors will spread and damage this young lady's reputation." "Oh." Chen Ping'an rinsed the cloth and asked, "Daoist master, do you have money for the medicine?" The young Daoist immediately grew nervous. "You don't?" Chen Ping'an set the basin on the table and produced a golden coin from somewhere. He gently placed it on the tabletop. "Daoist master, exchange this for ordinary money for me. You can decide the rate." The young Daoist considered it for a moment. "This coin is more than enough to pay for the medicine. This humble Daoist will get you some regular currency." Before long, he returned with a small purse and a few pieces of broken silver, handing them to Chen Ping'an with a gloomy expression. Chen Ping'an reminded him, "I'll replace the basin water when I come back. You don't need to help." Song Jixin next door is very nosy. It wouldn't be good if he saw anything. The young Daoist looked at him solemnly. "Chen Ping'an, do you truly have nothing you want to ask?" Chen Ping'an stood there as if silently comparing the value of the coins and silver. Once he had worked it out in his head, he carefully put everything away and motioned with his eyes toward the door. After the 2 of them stepped outside, the straw-sandaled boy raised his head and slowly said, "I know none of you are ordinary people. Old man Yao once said when he was drunk that our town is unusual. Strange places everywhere, strange people everywhere. But he could never explain exactly what was strange, and of course I understood even less. This time, Gukin told me about that storyteller. He said an ordinary-looking bowl could draw enough water to fill a well. Gukan is annoying, but I know he wasn't lying about that. It's like, the boy paused before continuing. Like today. A very tall woman came outside this alley. She flicked my forehead with one finger, then struck my chest with her palm. In the end, she told me I would die soon. I know she was telling the truth. The young Daoist's expression grew grave. Chen Ping'an finally said, Daoist master, you told me that the talisman you drew, once burned, could bring good fortune to my parents. I truly believed you. So when you came to my door and asked me to save someone, I didn't say anything more. But I want you to promise me one thing. If you agree, then from now on, whatever you ask me to do, I'll do it. If you don't agree, I'll still buy the medicine and help you brew it this time, but after that I'll ask you to leave. The Daoist asked, what condition? Tell me. The boy, who had always seemed calm and steady beyond his years, suddenly became a little uneasy. My parents died very early. I was still small then. I don't know why, but I remember many things from when I was little. Only their faces are always blurry. I can never remember them properly. Afterward, I survived for a while on meals from other households, relying on the neighbors to keep me alive. Once, I accidentally heard people say I was born on the 5th day of the 5th lunar month. From the way they spoke, it didn't sound like an auspicious day. Someone next door even said outright. He had been circling around the subject for a long time. He stopped, then finally came straight to the point. Lowering his head, he asked in a heavy voice, after I helped Daoist Master save her, if I'm only saying if I suddenly die, could you help me in my next life? Could you let me be reborn as my parents' child again? The young Daoist fell silent. Chen Ping'an forced a grin and shook his head. If you can't, then forget it. There probably isn't such a thing in this world anyway. I'm making things difficult for you. The Daoist gave a bitter smile. Then what about the young lady inside? Chen Ping'an suddenly turned his back on him and raised a fist. For the first time, he joked, she's that pretty. Only an idiot wouldn't save her. The young Daoist watched the straw-sandaled boy pretend that everything was easy, then saw him push open the gate and leave. By the time Chen Ping'an reached Mud Bottle Alley, he seemed to remember someone. In an instant, tears filled his face. When the boy came out of Mud Bottle Alley, he happened to run into Jigui, Song Jixin's maid. After escorting the tall woman to Gukan's home, Jigui had not hurried back. Instead, she wandered around the nearby streets, stopping by the shops around Apricot Blossom Alley. She bought nothing, yet remained in a good mood, almost skipping as she walked. Raised in a watery countryside of rivers and canals, the girl seemed to carry the scent of fresh grass with her. Compared with sheltered young ladies raised in grand compounds behind high walls, she possessed a very different air. When she saw the straw-sandaled boy, she did not lower her eyes and hurry past him as she usually did. Instead, she stopped in front of this neighbor with whom she rarely spoke, looking as though she wanted to say something. Chen Ping'an smiled at her and slowly walked past. Then he began moving faster and faster. Jigui stood silently in Mud Bottle Alley and turned to watch him flee beneath the sunlight. He reminded her of a scruffy stray cat, nothing much to look at but stubbornly alive, somehow never quite starving to death. Jigui herself had never been especially cheerful in the small town. Serving a young master as eccentric as Song Jixin was no easy task. Whether she was drawing water from Ironlock Well, buying groceries, or purchasing brushes, ink, paper, and other study supplies for her master, she always gave people the impression that she did not belong. She had no friends her own age and rarely exchanged more than a few words even with acquaintances. To the townsfolk, a girl like that was difficult to approach. In this respect, Chen Ping'an and Jigui were somewhat alike. The main difference was that although the boy also spoke little, his nature was not unpleasant in the slightest. On the contrary, Chen Ping'an was gentle and easy to get along with by temperament, and no one had ever heard much bad said about him. It was only because his family had fallen into poverty, and he had gone to work at the kilns from a young age that he seemed distant from the neighbors. Of course, the residents of Mud Bottle Alley did harbor a vague fear regarding the day of his birth. The 5th day of the 5th lunar month was considered an evil day under the town's old customs concerning the 5 poisons. Chen Ping'an had been born on that date. Both his parents had died, leaving him the last of his family line. Naturally, people whispered, the elderly in particular, the sort who liked gathering beneath the old scholar tree to gossip, kept their distance from the boy. They secretly warned their own children not to get too close to him. Yet whenever the children frowned and demanded to know why, those same elders found themselves unable to give a proper answer. At that moment, a slender figure emerged from the alley and stopped beside Jigui. The maid turned her head but said nothing. She simply continued walking. The newcomer turned as well and fell into step beside her through Mud Bottle Alley. It was Master Cai Jinjian, the small town's only true scholar and an orthodox Confucian disciple. Without slowing, Jigui said coldly, "Wouldn't it be better if the two of us simply kept to our own business? Well, water does not interfere with river water. And don't forget, Master Qi, Before, you truly held every advantage at timing, terrain, and people. I was only a little servant girl, so naturally I had no choice but to swallow my anger. But recently, something seems to have gone wrong with the lineage and Daoist field behind you, far away beyond countless thousands of miles. Isn't that right? So now you're only the well water, and I am the river. Cai Jinjian, walking through Mud Bottle Alley like an uninvited guest, smiled. Wang Zhu, never mind. Since we're here, I'll follow local custom and call you Jigui for now. Jigui, have you ever considered that although heaven and earth favor you, although you were born at the right moment, do you truly think I have no means of suppressing you? Or do you believe that several thousand years ago, when 4 sages whose movements were impossible to trace came here together and personally established the rules, they merely spoke a few words and left no contingencies behind? In the end, you're only a creature sitting at the bottom of a well and staring at the sky. The heavens are far higher and the earth far broader than the circle you can see from a well mouth. Jigui frowned. Master Qi, don't try to frighten me. I'm not my young master Song Jixin. I have no interest in your strange riddles, and I've never believed them. You might as well speak plainly. If you want to fight to the death, I'll accept it. If you want us to part peacefully, I'll accept that too. The middle-aged Confucian scholar slowly said, my advice is this. Once you escape this cage, do not become greedy for more simply because you've gained a little. Do not chase immediate profit at any cost. It will benefit no one. Especially once you and he set foot upon the great Tao of cultivation. Whether or not you become Tao companions, you must restrain your edge. You cannot act wantonly and without fear. This is not a threat. We are approaching a parting point, so consider these a few sincere words from me, a friendly warning. By all rights, the difference in status between the two should have been as vast as heaven and earth. Yet Jigui remained utterly calm. For a moment, her presence even seemed to press faintly against the scholars. She sneered. A friendly warning? For thousands of years, cultivators like you have stood high above everyone else, marking out this place as if it were farmland. Cut one piece this year, reap another next year. Again and again, year after year, unchanged for millennia. And only now you remember that perhaps you should do good toward this so-called monstrosity? Ha! My young master once told me something that sounds very much like your standard rule. Those who are not of our kind must harbor different intentions. Isn't that right? So I can't exactly blame Master Qi. After all, Cai Jinjian continued forward. He took one light step. Oh? After that single step, Jigui's expression changed. At some point, the two of them had entered a strange place. All around was absolute darkness, so deep that even an outstretched hand could not be seen. Only far overhead did countless rays of light descend, each carrying a sacred aura. It was as though they stood at the bottom of a bottomless well, while brilliant golden light poured down from the distant opening above. Cai Jinjian wore blue-green robes. Waves of many-colored radiance flowed across the fabric without cease. Vast righteous qi, open, upright, and luminous. Jigui's face first twisted savagely. Then, very quickly, it returned to its usual cold, numb calm. She murmured, 60 years of Buddhist chanting, thunder beside my ears, every peal unending. 60 years of Taoist talismans, like maggots beneath my feet, gnawing without rest. 60 years of vast righteous qi, covering heaven and earth, leaving nowhere to hide. 60 years of military sword qi, like the earth itself turning over, leaving no place untouched. Every 60 years, another cycle. 3,000 years in all. Endless days and endless months. I have always wanted to know where the root of this so-called great Tao of yours truly lies. The words written in black ink on white paper in your books. The subtle, profound meanings you speak when you teach the Tao, impart knowledge and resolve doubts. I have heard them, but I cannot find them. She stared almost dazedly at Cai Jinjian, whose presence was filled with austere righteousness. He was both an obscure teacher in a remote corner of the world and a Confucian scholar of Cliff Academy, a man whom even the powerful Great Sui dynasty would address respectfully as master. Jigui suddenly smiled. Then what will master use to teach me? How will you persuade me to become good? If I remember correctly, the most sage master of your Confucian school and one of the Daoist patriarchs both taught that there should be education without distinction, did they not? Cai Jinjian shook his head. I could recite 10,000 teachings of the sages to you, and it would still be useless. Jigui seemed relaxed as she spoke to him, but in truth her whole body was like a bow drawn to its limit. The corners of her eyes never stopped searching the darkness around them, looking for the slightest weakness in this strange realm. Cai Jinjian acted as though he did not notice. He gave a cold laugh. I know you carry rage, resentment, and killing intent without end, nor am I someone who cannot tolerate those outside my own kind. But you should understand something. Compassion at whim and acts of mercy have never existed outside the teachings of the three schools. My young master often says that reasoning with scholars is the most meaningless thing in the world. Jigui curled the corner of her mouth, Her strange golden pupils narrowed. So Master Qi truly is enjoying a final burst of radiance before the lamp goes out. No wonder you're even harder to deal with than before, Qi Jinjian smiled. If reason cannot be explained to you, so be it. But as long as I, Qi Jinjian, remain alive for one more day, as long as I am still qualified to guard this place for one more day, an ungrateful wretch like you had better not bare your fangs and claws. Zhu Gui pointed at herself and laughed. I'm ungrateful? Anger appeared on the middle-aged scholar's face. When you were at your weakest, when you had no choice but to bow your head and voluntarily form a contract with a human, who was it that saved you in Mud Bottle Alley during that heavy snowfall? And over all these years, who has been devouring, bit by bit, the last remnants of his fortune? Zhu Gui laughed. If I'm hungry, I find food. If my stomach is empty, I fill it. Isn't that only natural? Besides, he never had much opportunity to begin with. If he dies early, he reincarnates early. Perhaps he'll have better luck in his next life. If you let a piece of duckweed like him drift around this town, then that would truly be. Qi Jinjian swept his sleeve. Silence! His anger rose. The great Tao is profound and heavenly principle shines clear. How could you possibly define it with a single sentence? Every life has its own fate and karmic opportunities. What right do you have to make another person's choice for them? Above Zhu Gui's head, a gigantic golden hand suddenly appeared. Its majesty was overwhelming, like a Buddha's palm subduing a heavenly demon, or a Daoist patriarch's hand suppressing a calamity. It came down heavily on her head. Zhu Gui dropped to her knees in an instant, her forehead smashing against the ground. The sound of that kowtow echoed through the entire realm. Head lowered, both hands braced against the ground, Zhu Gui struggled to rise. Her face could not be seen clearly. Only her bitter laughter could be heard. You can force me to bow my head, but I will never admit that I was wrong. The golden hand, filled with boundless authority, seized her head, lifted it, then pressed down again. A second kowtow. This time the sound was like spring thunder. Qi Jinjian said in a deep voice, "Do not forget, this single path of survival was given to you by the sages. You did not win it for yourself. Otherwise, forget suppressing you for 3,000 years, even 30,000 would be no difficult matter." Zhu Gui's head remained pinned down. Her voice came out hoarse. "To hell with your great Tao, I will not follow it." Qi Jinjian raised his arm high and suddenly grasped the empty air before him. "Insolent, be suppressed." From among the sacred beams pouring through the distant well mouth, a white jade seal appeared. It was more than a zhang across, engraved with 8 ancient characters so vividly red that they were almost painful to look at. Countless arcs of purple lightning coiled around it, rumbling in waves. At Qi Jinjian's command, words became law. The gigantic seal descended from the heavens and slammed into the back of Zhu Gui, who was already kneeling on the ground. The seal seemed to contain the crushing authority of the heavenly Tao itself, yet it did not appear entirely physical. Instead of flattening the girl beneath its weight, it plunged through her with thunder and wind, sank into the earth, and vanished. The spectacle was enormous. The aftermath seemed almost strangely quiet. But an instant later, Zhu Gui collapsed as though every bone in her body had been struck by a mountain. She lay crumpled on the ground, wretched beyond description. Even then, she curled her 5 fingers and scraped at the earth with all her strength, as though trying to carve words into it with her fingernails. Expressionless, Qi Jinjian said coldly. 3 kowtows, one to show reverence to heaven and earth, one to all living beings, one to the great Tao. Zhu Gui's eyes were vacant. She did not answer. Qi Jinjian gently swept his sleeve, dispersing the suffocating pressure that had filled the realm. I, Qi Jinjian, am nothing more than a pedantic Confucian beneath the sages, yet I can force you to kowtow 3 times. Once you leave this place and begin acting as you please, are you truly not afraid that you will meet someone even less willing to reason than you are someone who can crush you with a single finger? Qi Jinjian sighed. You truly have been suppressed and imprisoned here. You have had no freedom. But have you ever considered that absolute freedom does not exist anywhere in this world? The rights and laws established by the most sage of Confucianism, are they not also a way of winning another kind of freedom for all living things? As long as you do not cross the boundaries, as long as you do not violate the rules, as long as you observe proper rights, then one day, beneath these vast heavens and across this boundless earth, where would you be unable to go? Zhu Gui raised her head and stared directly at the middle-aged scholar. Qi Jinjian took one step. The world returned to normal. He and Zhu Gui were once again in Mud Bottle Alley, beneath warm sunlight and a gentle spring breeze. The girl swayed as she stood. Her smile was pale, her clenched teeth faintly visible. This servant will remember master's lesson today. Qi Jinjian said nothing. He turned and walked away. Zhu Gui suddenly called after him. Even if I truly repaid Chen Ping'an's kindness with betrayal, you are a renowned disciple of the sages. Why did you stand by and do nothing? Why do you favor your disciple Zhao Yao and my young master Song Jixin? yet pay no attention to Chen Ping'an simply because his background is ordinary. Isn't that no different from merchants doing business? If something looks profitable, you nurture it carefully. If the goods are cheap and won't fetch a worthwhile price, you treat them carelessly and don't bother with them at all. Cai Jinjian smiled. Heaven moves with strength. The noble person never ceases to strengthen himself. Jigui looked blank. By the time the middle-aged scholar disappeared at the end of the alley, contempt flooded back onto her face. She spat hard. Then she limped toward her own courtyard. When she passed Chen Ping'an's house, she wrinkled her nose and frowned, vaguely troubled by something. Yet the damned scholar's cultivation was collapsing, and all across the town, secrets of heaven were beginning to leak out, as though the whole place were a little boat riddled with holes. She could barely look after herself. She had more urgent things to calculate for her own future, and so she could not be bothered to investigate every small anomaly. When she pushed open the back gate, a thick-bodied lizard crawled out from some corner and hurried toward her feet. Jigui kicked it flying. Inside Chen Ping'an's room, the young Daoist sat upright at the table, eyes lowered toward the tip of his nose lowered toward his heart. The black-clad girl who had seemed nearly dead not long ago was already able to sit up on the bed by herself. She sat cross-legged without her veil, revealing a face that left an unusually deep impression. It was not that she possessed some devastating kingdom-toppling beauty. Rather, she carried such fierce heroic spirit that one might forget the exact shape of her features after looking away. Her brows were not willow leaves, they were blades. When she fixed the young Daoist with a searching gaze, he became visibly uncomfortable. He had done absolutely nothing wrong, yet somehow felt guilty. He coughed and hurried to clear himself of blame. "Miss, let this humble Daoist explain first. I did save your life, yes, but the person who carried you inside, removed your face veil, washed your face, and handled the rest was someone else. His name is Chen Ping'an. This broken-down house belongs to him. He's a poor boy whose parents both died. Back when he worked at the pottery kilns, he once asked this humble Daoist for a talisman. That is roughly everything. If you have anything else to ask, this humble Daoist will answer everything I know without holding back." At that moment, the straw-sandaled boy had been sold out completely. The girl nodded. She did not fly into embarrassed anger. Instead, she simply said, "Thank you for saving my life, Daoist master." The young Daoist grew even more uneasy and laughed awkwardly. "It was nothing at all. Barely worth mentioning, as long as you're all right." The black-clad girl asked, "Daoist master, you're not from Eastern Treasured Vile Continent?" The young Daoist asked in return, "Neither are you, correct?" She gave a quiet sound of acknowledgement. So did he. The young Daoist, wearing a lotus crown, smiled. "This humble Daoist's surname is Lu, given name Chen. No courtesy name. You may simply call me Daoist Lu." The girl nodded lightly and glanced at him. The young Daoist hesitated, then gathered his courage. That boy may have done a few things that did not entirely conform to propriety, but the situation was urgent. Also, this humble Daoist did not expect you to recover so quickly, so if there was any offense, I hope you will not blame him. The girl smiled. "Daoist Lu, I'm not an unreasonable person." The young Daoist immediately brightened. Good. The girl raised an eyebrow. His smile froze on the spot. She glanced around the room with a calm expression. Then she said casually, "I heard that Master Ruan is the finest swordsmith on this continent. I also heard he plans to establish a sword-forging furnace here. That is why I traveled all this way. I hope he can forge a sword for me." The young Daoist sighed with feeling. "If it truly is that man, getting him to personally forge a sword for you will not be easy." The black-clad girl was clearly troubled by this as well. It will be very difficult. At that moment, Chen Ping'an returned. He carried a bundle of medicinal herbs in his left hand and a small package in his right. He knocked symbolically on the doorframe before hurrying inside and placing the herbs on the table. "Daoist master, check whether anything is wrong. If there is, I'll go back and exchange it immediately." Chen Ping'an still held the small package. He turned toward the girl. She sat cross-legged on the bed, facing the straw-sandaled boy. The black-clad girl calmly said, "Hello, my father's surname is Ning. My mother's surname is Yao, so my name is Ning Yao." Without thinking, Chen Ping'an replied, "Hello, my father's surname is Chen, and my mother's surname was also Chen, so." He grew a little embarrassed. Then, very quickly, he smiled naturally. "I'm Chen Ping'an." Ning Yao showed no particular reaction. The young Daoist, however, could not hold back and burst out laughing. He immediately realized the atmosphere had become somewhat dangerous and hurriedly changed the subject. "These tender leaves are from Green Water Pool in Dragon Scale Streama. Around here you call them 3 Spring Willow. They were picked at the wrong time, 7 or 8 days too late. And this flying dragon herb locally called Maiden's Waste was ground far too carelessly. And these paired blossoms. The Yang family's apothecary is becoming more outrageous by the day. They're even skimping on the amount they sell now. How can they charge that much for so little?" The young Taoist suddenly became absurdly fussy, turning leaves over as if searching for insects and finding fault with everything he saw. One might have thought he had a personal grudge against the Yang family apothecary. At last, after all that criticism, he made an abrupt turn. The shopkeeper's conscience has clearly been eaten by dogs, but the herbs on this table are still enough to brew medicine and save a life. Of course, that's mostly because Miss Ning Yao has an excellent constitution. It has absolutely nothing to do with the Yang family's pharmacy. The young Taoist slapped his forehead. I nearly forgot. He unfolded a clean sheet of paper and began writing as he instructed Chen Ping'an. I'll write another set of brewing instructions for you. This is restorative medicine, so don't be careless with it. This prescription not only treats injuries, it also replenishes the foundation. It follows the superior principle of nourishing battle through battle, a prerequisite for establishing oneself on the martial path. It also steadies the mind and does no harm to the patient. At worst, it takes more time and requires a few more herbs. In other words, it only costs money. I'll write down when you need a strong flame and when you need a low one. Even the hour at which each medicine is brewed matters. In short, for the next 7 days you'll have to work hard. Chen Ping'an. A man is supposed to carry heavy burdens. Otherwise, why would people speak of a true man standing between heaven and earth? You can't shirk your responsibility. Wouldn't want the young lady to look down on you. When he spoke the words, standing between heaven and earth, the young Taoist gave an almost imperceptible shake of his head. The prescription itself filled barely half a page. The brewing instructions took 2 full pages. His handwriting was ordinary small script, neat and disciplined. Chen Ping'an grew anxious. Taoist master, you're not going to stay and handle this yourself? This is a matter of life and death. Wouldn't it be safer if you watched over it personally? The young Taoist said helplessly. This humble Taoist must leave the town now. A branch of my sect in the southern Jian kingdom is holding a ceremony that I must attend in person. Chen Ping'an looked even more helpless. Taoist master, but I can't. The young Taoist stared at him, then laughed. That's no problem. Miss Ning can read. Before brewing the medicine, ask her. Ning Yao nodded. Chen Ping'an was about to say something else when the young Taoist suddenly remembered another matter. He reached into his sleeve and took out a small, exquisite green seal. He blew lightly across the carved face, then stamped it firmly onto the page containing the prescription. When he lifted the seal, he looked rather pleased with himself. He tucked it back into his sleeve and handed the remaining 2 pages to Chen Ping'an as well. Keep these carefully. Books in this town are all hidden away in private homes, so they're not easy for you to buy. If you truly want to learn to read, you can start with this prescription. The young Taoist turned to Ning Yao with a smile. A single leaf of duckweed returns to the sea. In life, who knows where we may meet again? Miss Ning, shall we say that we'll meet again someday? Ning Yao straightened her expression. Daoist Lu, we will meet again. There are no words sufficient to thank you for such a great kindness. If there is ever anything I can do for you in the future, send a flying sword message to Inverted Hanging Mountain. But Taoist Master, remember this, you absolutely must sign the name Lu Chen. Otherwise, Inverted Hanging Mountain may not permit the flying sword through its gates. At the mention of Inverted Hanging Mountain, the young Taoist was clearly surprised. He seemed about to ask something. Ning Yao gently shook her head. He immediately understood and did not press the matter. There were some things the boy in this room was better off not knowing. The young Taoist left the room first, but not before catching Chen Ping'an by the arm. Chen Ping'an, this humble Taoist has a few final words for you. Chen Ping'an placed the small package on the bed and told Ning Yao that it contained new clothes. When the two reached the courtyard, the young Taoist lowered his voice and asked directly, with your memory, you must have memorized the writing on the prescription already. And next door lives a scholar who studies books. So I can't read is not the real reason you were trying to stop this humble Taoist from leaving. Chen Ping'an replied, with Taoist master's abilities you must already know the reason. The young Taoist found that amusing. You think you're certain to die, so you're afraid no one will be left to take care of that girl? Chen Ping'an nodded. When I opened the door that day, I decided I would take responsibility to the end. The young Taoist stood beside his handcart. Bringing 2 fingers together, he made a quiet sweeping gesture. The long sword into which Cai Jinjian had pressed 2 characters of sword Qi silently flew into the house. Perhaps Ning Yao did not want to frighten Chen Ping'an, because she tacitly allowed the flying sword this moment of presumption. The young Taoist thought for a while. Whenever he pondered deeply, he unconsciously raised 1 finger and tapped the lotus crown on his head. At last he said, before coming here, one of my senior brothers told me something. Leave room for reason in what you do, and leave human feeling in how you treat people. Since that's the case, this humble Taoist need not be too rigid. Everyone in the world has their own fate and their own opportunities. and the fundamental teachings of my sect have always held certain objections toward the decrees of another orthodox lineage. Meeting is itself a kind of fate. Let us reluctantly call this a small good karmic bond. This humble Taoist does not mind following the current for once, but I cannot give you my fortune stick cylinder or the 108 sticks inside it. The cause and effect would become too tangled. Once those threads get confused, they cannot be cut cleanly. It would be troublesome. As for the seal, its weight is too great. If I gave it to you, then the moment the town's restrictions loosened, everything would be exposed in broad daylight. That would not be helping you. It would be harming you. Sigh. Don't tell me I'm supposed to give you some gold and silver instead? That's far too crude. Too vulgar. How could this humble Taoist possibly bring himself to do such a thing? To his surprise, Chen Ping'an said with absolute seriousness, Daoist Lu, giving money is very respectable, not vulgar at all. The young Taoist gave him an amused look. You didn't understand those first two things, but surely you could tell they were extraordinary. Why didn't you ask for them? Chen Ping'an slowly answered. A bowl that can hold at least 2 full jars of water. A talisman that can be burned for elders in the underworld. A strange young woman nearly beaten to death. And that pouch with 28 golden coins. Before, I only had old man Yao's drunken word that this place was strange. Now I've seen it with my own eyes. If all this had happened before I met the two of you, I definitely would have hidden from you. I wouldn't even have opened the door today. The young Taoist leaned against the cart and spoke in a low voice. That woman touched your forehead with one finger to forcibly open one of your body's apertures. In martial arts, the act is called pointing the way. There are high and low methods, benevolent intentions, and malicious ones. To put it another way, imagine the door to your house wasn't sturdy enough. She deliberately smashed it with an iron hammer. Of course the door opened, but she also ruined the foundation. Think about the future. When rain, wind, frost, and snow come, the person who broke the door is long gone, while you're the one who must live in the house year after year. What will you do then? Chen Ping'an hesitated. I can still endure hardship. Seeing that the straw-sandaled boy did not appear to be joking at all, the young Taoist sighed. That was only the first time she harmed you. If your bones and sinews were strong and your blood and qi abundant, living to 30 or 40 would not have been difficult. But when she struck your chest with her palm, that was the true fatal wound. She damaged the source of your body, and worse, cut off your road to longevity. More precisely, you originally still had a narrow thread of opportunity. Because of the unique heaven and earth of this place, if fortune turned in your favor, you might have reversed your fate and stepped onto the great Tao of cultivation. Imagine fish and shrimp in a great rushing river. Those blessed with good luck naturally reap the greatest harvest. But even those with poor luck may benefit when another becomes a flood dragon. They might ride that momentum and grow into a large fish themselves. Chen Ping'an did not look frightened or panicked. He simply stood there in silence. There was not even the slightest sign that he was forcing himself to remain calm. The young Taoist neither praised nor belittled him. He only sighed softly. Chen Ping'an, being so young and already taking life and death lightly is not necessarily a good thing. You think that, of course, living would be best. But if there truly is no way, if heaven simply refuses to let you live, then dying is dying. You aren't afraid. Isn't that right? Because to you, death might actually be an opportunity. A chance to meet them again. Chen Ping'an did not deny it. The young Taoist suddenly cursed him. Then have you ever thought about this? Even if you wandered through the vast underworld and were lucky enough to meet your parents, how do you think they would feel when they saw you? The more he spoke, the angrier he became. He raised a finger and jabbed Chen Ping'an hard in the head, as though he wanted to poke through that wooden skull. In unofficial histories and tales of ghosts and strange beings, White Impermanence wears a tall white hat. Whenever he comes to the mortal world to collect a dead person's soul, the dead can clearly see 4 great characters written on that hat. So you've come too. Chen Ping'an, let me ask you, when your parents see you, do you think they'll happily say, "Son, so you've come too?" Will they still be able to reincarnate in peace after that? Do you truly believe there are many people in this world blessed enough by fate to be parents and children, husbands and wives, lifetime after lifetime? This humble Taoist will tell you clearly, dream on. Even a supreme sect master capable of changing the colors of mountains and rivers has no such heaven-defying power. Much less you, Chen Ping'an, a penniless brat who can barely guarantee 3 full meals. By the end, the young Taoist's expression had become stern and utterly serious. Chen Ping'an stood there lost and helpless. Since the day he became old enough to understand the world, this was the first time in his life he had ever felt such fear. His hands and feet turned cold. The boy squatted down and hugged his head with both arms. This time he did not scratch it. The young Taoist looked down at that small, thin figure. All right. You helped save someone, so this humble Taoist owes you a favor. I had originally hoped I could conveniently default on the debt. If not, I could always repay it in your next life. But looking at you now, I'd better settle everything properly so we're square. I'll tell you 3 things. Remember them one by one. First, once Miss Ning has recovered, take her to the stream south of the town and find a father and daughter surnamed Ruan. Remember this carefully, you must bring her with you. If you go alone, even 100 times will be useless. Once you're there, shamelessly cling to them if you must. Cry, beg, make a scene, whatever it takes. Get yourself accepted as a helper or apprentice. Dig ore, move stone, forge swords, quench steel, it doesn't matter. The point is to find yourself a foothold there. That way, Miss Ning will have repaid the favor she owes you, and you won't need to feel that you've taken advantage of her. He continued. Second, after the 5th day of the 5th lunar month, you must often go to the stream beneath the covered bridge. Pick stones if you like, catch fish, swim, whatever. Go there normally. Go when you're restless and troubled. And if you ever feel some strange stirring in your heart, then you should go there all the more. As for what you might gain, with the miserable amount of opportunity you possess, heaven only knows. But diligence can make up for clumsiness. If even that brings you nothing, then you little brat will simply have to accept your fate. After saying the first 2 things, the young Taoist began moving the handcart. Chen Ping'an was still crouching there, though he had turned his face toward him. Get up and help. The boy stood and went over to push. Curious, he asked. Didn't you say there were 3 things? The young Taoist snorted. I told you long ago. Think about it yourself. Chen Ping'an stared blankly. Afterward, the Taoist continued muttering reminders. That coin is extremely valuable. Keep it safe. For the next while, go out less. Smile more. You walk around with a long face all day and you're not handsome to begin with. Who wants to look at that? He kept talking and talking. He sounded almost like an elder. They pushed the cart out of the courtyard. Chen Ping'an said he would help push it all the way to the mouth of Mud Bottle Alley. The young Taoist did not refuse. One walked before the other through the narrow lane. At last, the Taoist said, There is something else I should tell you. According to what this humble Taoist can divine of your fate, your parents dying young was not your fault. He paused for a very long time. Only when the handcart was almost out of Mud Bottle Alley did he finally speak again quietly. More than that, your life has been full of hardship because your parents paid dearly for you. Chen Ping'an said nothing. In the end, the young Taoist insisted that the boy go no farther. He pushed the cart east alone. When he looked back, Chen Ping'an was still standing at the mouth of the alley, waving with a bright smile. He did not look at all like someone who was going to die. Fu Nanhua, young lord of Old Dragon City, sat upright across from Song Jixin. He held a small pot carefully in both hands, studying every carved line upon it as though admiring the captivating body of a peerless beauty. He could not get enough of it. He handled it delicately, cautiously, hardly daring to breathe too hard. For half an hour, Fu Nanhua had turned the pot over and over in his hands, unable to put it down. There are always a few people or things in this world that make one fall in love at first sight. For Fu Nanhua's discerning eye, this heart-nourishing pot was one of them. Finding a treasure and being fooled by a fake were often separated by only a single line. Yet Fu Nanhua was certain this time he had found the former. And not a small treasure at that. Old Dragon City stood at the forefront among the many cultivation powers in the southern part of Eastern Treasured Vile Continent. Fu Nanhua was a genuine immortal disciple with broad knowledge and experience. That was also why Cai Jinjian had repeatedly yielded to him earlier. Song Jixin yawned and shifted into a more comfortable position in his chair. Brother Fu, now that you've confirmed the pot is genuine, shouldn't we talk about the price? Fu Nanhua was rarely addressed so casually as brother. Suppressing the discomfort in his heart, he reluctantly set the pot down and smiled. Surely Brother Song understands my sincerity. Otherwise, I would never have told you the true value of this pot the moment we met. Nor would I have dragged things out like this and made it so obvious that I absolutely must have it. I only wish to avoid the two of us haggling until the price turned ugly. Losing some money is nothing. Damaging the friendship between brothers would be the true loss. Brother Song, I, Fu Nanhua, already regard you as a kindred spirit on the future road of cultivation. Today we may conduct business without suspicion. In the future, perhaps we will share fortune and disaster, or even entrust our lives to one another. But whether that future is possible depends on whether the first step we take today is steady enough. Song Jixin raised one finger, pointed at the young nobleman who looked so sincere and smiled. Brother Fu, I'm an especially vulgar person. I smell of money from head to toe. Of course I understand friendship too, but when everyone sits down to do business, and someone starts talking to me about brotherhood, I can't help wondering whether that person, when I truly need him someday, will be privately calculating profits and losses like a merchant. Fu Nanhua's expression cooled. He leaned back against his chair and lightly tapped one finger on the tabletop. Softly, silently. Song Jixin appeared not to notice the change in his attitude. Calling you Brother Fu and taking out this pot for you to inspect was already my sincerity. If we both want this deal to happen, then let's be straightforward. Brother Fu gives a price. I nod or shake my head. I'll give you 2 chances to name your offer. After those 2 chances are gone, once you walk out of here, even if you promise me mountains of gold and seas of silver, sorry, brother, I won't sell. Fu Nanhua said. The jade pendant I gave you earlier may be considered my greeting gift. It is called Old Dragon Dispensing Rain. It isn't some overwhelmingly powerful immortal treasure. Its uses are mostly practical, cooling the body in summer, calming the mind, warding off foul influences. It is especially useful for meditation. If paired with a secret breathing formula from a superior Daoist lineage, its benefits become even greater. He smiled with genuine warmth. Not the slightest trace of condescension or charitable superiority appeared on his face. Fu Nanhua placed an embroidered pouch on the table and pushed it toward Song Jixin. This pouch of coins is what we call offering money, one of the forms of incense currency used in the world. Such coins are commonly enshrined within divine statues in martial temples or wenchang pavilions. They may be placed in the mouth, hidden in the belly, or set in the hand. Each placement has its own meaning and use, but none of that is the most important point. These may look like ordinary golden coins, but in truth they are made of gold essence, far more valuable than gold itself. An immortal once said, "Water jade may still be mined, of secret gold essence, speak not." That saying refers to precisely this substance. 1 pouch of gold essence offering coins may not be an overwhelmingly generous price for this pot, but it is certainly fair. And once the old dragon pendant is added, I, Fu Nanhua, dare say that you, Brother Song, are the one profiting from the exchange. After pouring out all these words from the heart, Fu Nanhua calmly waited for a reply. Song Jixin remained silent for a moment, then he blinked. Finished? Fu Nanhua gave a bitter smile. Finished. The boy's face changed instantly. He slapped the table. Fu, get the hell out! You think I'm some 3-year-old idiot you can trick? Before people like you enter this town, each of you receives 3 pouches of coins. 1 pouch is spent to buy your way in. Every time you obtain a treasure or opportunity, large or small, you're supposed to hand over another pouch. A full pouch contains as many as 30 coins and no fewer than 20. But that pathetic little pouch of yours, does it even contain 12? You want to do business with me without even showing that much honesty, and you still dare ask to trade for an opportunity from this young master's hands? Fu Nanhua increased the force behind his finger. The tapping accelerated, slowly at first, then faster. Song Jixin's chest jolted. His breath suddenly caught. His face flushed red and threads of blood appeared around his eyes. He hurriedly pressed one hand over his chest. His heart hammered like a war drum. Thump, 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 as though it were trying to smash its way out through his ribs. Fu Nanhua gradually slowed his tapping. Song Jixin's complexion improved along with it. Fu Nanhua smiled. Since my first price failed, I'll make a second offer. 24 gold essence offering coins. For this mountain demon pot, will you sell? Drenched in sweat, Song Jixin hesitated. When he saw the other man's hand begin to move again, he was already trying to think of some softer words to ease the situation. But the pampered young lord of Old Dragon City had already begun tapping a second time, fast, like a sudden summer downpour. Song Jixin clutched his chest with both hands. His handsome face twisted horribly. Yet amid the pain there was a cruel smile. Fu Nanhua nearly lost patience and simply tapped the little bastard to death. In the end, however, the temptation of ascending in a single step and proving the Tao of longevity outweighed his personal likes and dislikes. He stopped, he spared the boy. Song Jixin gasped for air, eyes burning, a hoarse laugh escaping his throat. Fu Nanhua could not understand it. There seemed to be no hatred in the boy's gaze. Not that Fu Nanhua found that especially alarming. The road of cultivation was filled with strange people and stranger temperaments. Still, he asked, "What are you laughing at?" Song Jixin's breathing gradually steadied. He leaned back, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and said with shining eyes, "I was just imagining the near future. If I can gain an ability like yours, kill someone in the blink of an eye, I think I'll be happier than words can describe." Fu Nanhua smiled, as expected of someone he found worthy of being a fellow traveler. People like this were actually easy to deal with, as long as you remained above them. Yet the moment you became careless, they might climb straight over your head. Still, the young lord of Old Dragon City did not believe that after successfully obtaining an opportunity here, he could possibly fall behind a boy who, before the age of 9, had never been able to leave this little town. Song Jixin glanced at the pot on the table and the half-filled pouch of coins. Then he raised his head. "Fu Nanhua, I have 2 conditions. If you agree to both, not only will I sell you the mountain demon pot, I'll also take out another object no less valuable." Fu Nanhua suppressed the joy in his heart and kept his voice as calm as possible. Let's hear them. Song Jixin did not keep him in suspense. His first demand was startling enough to frighten most people senseless. First, I want 3 full pouches of gold essence coins from you, not 2. Fu Nanhua answered without hesitation. Agreed. Song Jixin stared directly into his eyes. Fu Nanhua smiled. Believe me or don't. But before I leave today, you must also take out an object equal in value to 2 pouches of gold essence and let me inspect it personally. Song Jixin nodded. Of course. Fu Nanhua asked. And the second condition? Song Jixin slowly said, kill someone for me. Fu Nanhua shook his head. If you understand even how many coins should be in each pouch, then you should also know that people like us cannot casually kill someone in this town. If we do, we will be expelled immediately. Worse, part of our cultivation foundation may be stripped away, and the karmic opportunities connecting us to sages and immortal lineages may be severed. The consequences would be miserable beyond measure, and our families could lose every opportunity they have here as well. The corner of Song Jixin's mouth rose. Don't refuse so quickly, you can wait and see how things develop. How about that? Fu Nanhua laughed. Now you've made me curious. Who do you want dead? Song Jixin had answered half truthfully, half falsely. I haven't decided yet. Fu Nanhua picked up the pot once more, feeling the smooth warmth of its surface beneath his fingertips. Then I suppose I'll wait and see. Across the table, Song Jixin unconsciously rubbed his neck. His expression was terrible. Earlier, Zhigui had escorted Cai Jinjian to the gate of Gu Can's courtyard before leaving to wander the streets alone. Cai Jinjian pushed open the Gu family's gate. The moment she stepped inside, she froze as though struck by lightning. She did not dare move. Her eyes fixed on the old man sitting on the long bench. Her voice trembled. Senior, are you the Cutting River True Lord who cultivates in seclusion at Bookslip Lake? The old man asked. How did you recognize this old man? Cai Jinjian respectfully replied. This junior is Cai Jinjian of Cloud Glow Mountain. 10 years ago, I followed my father to Bookslip Lake to witness the strange sight of the giant turtle emerging from the water. I was fortunate enough to see Senior from afar. The memory remains vivid even now. The old man nodded. I see. Cai Jinjian's heart sank slightly. True Lord, this junior wishes to the storyteller known as the Cutting River True Lord gave her one indifferent glance. For the sake of old ancestor Xianxia, this old man will overlook your uninvited entrance this time. There will not be a second. Leave the courtyard and close the gate behind you. Cai Jinjian was silent for only a moment before nodding. This junior takes her leave, and she truly left just like that. She even remembered to close the gate, gently and carefully. Inside the courtyard, Gu Can's mother looked toward the closed gate and asked anxiously, Immortal Master, that woman doesn't look like someone who will simply give up. Will this cause trouble? The old man who bore the title True Lord sneered. Once you've entered this small town, breathing, eating, farting, anything you do can bring trouble. Are you supposed to give up a great opportunity because of that? The woman had no answer. The old man smiled. Let me ask you something, Madam Gu. If you had the choice, would you rather Gu can cultivate at Cloud Glow Mountain, or follow me to Bookslip Lake? Don't answer yet. The old man raised a hand to stop her from responding too quickly. He spoke slowly. Cloud Glow Mountain is only considered a second-rate sect on Eastern Treasured Vile Continent. But if you think that means it is insignificant, you would be gravely mistaken. Cloud Glow Mountain produces Cloud Root Stone, a true treasure of heaven and earth. Not only on Eastern Treasured Vile Continent, but in the entire world, there is only one place where it can be found. Because of that, Cloud Glow Mountain enjoys an exalted position. Everyone is willing to give them some face. Their ties with Daoist alchemical lineages in particular run very deep. As for this old man, I am merely a cultivator of Bookslip Lake. I occupy a single island. My disciples can be counted on one hand, and I have fewer than 100 servants. Madame Gu smiled calmly. Though no longer young, she still retained much of her charm. The difference between me and that woman from Cloud Glow Mountain is probably like the difference between her and you. Immortal Master, how could I let Gu can abandon a true blessed land and follow her out into the fields to scrape for a living? The old man laughed loudly. Then he suddenly remembered something. His expression turned serious. What is that other boy's background? Madame Gu, tell me everything you know. Better to prevent even the slightest unexpected problem. Madame Gu paused. She brushed a strand of hair back from her temple before speaking softly. That poor child is called Chen Ping'an. Both his parents were born and raised in this town. I was actually on good terms with his mother. She wasn't extraordinarily beautiful, but she had an excellent temperament. I don't think I ever saw her quarrel angrily with anyone. Her husband, on the other hand, wasn't much to look at. To be honest, he didn't seem worthy of her, but his pottery skills were good. If he hadn't died young, another 20 years might have been enough for him to become a master craftsman at one of the great dragon kilns. As for how he died, there are several stories. Some say that during a night of torrential rain, he feared something had happened at the kiln and rushed out in a panic. He slipped and fell into a stream. Others say he went to cut firewood, tried to take a shortcut into a mountain area sealed by the imperial court, and was eaten by wild beasts in the old forest. In any case, his body was never found. That man was the silent type. You could beat him with 3 sticks and still not get a fart out of him. But he was very good to his child. Every time he returned to town, he would bring Chen Ping'an some little gift, a toy drum, bodhisattva candy, an old pottery jar. All things considered, before the father died, their family of 3 lived a stable enough life, she continued. After Chen Ping'an's father died, his mother probably became ill from grief. Her spirit and health collapsed quickly. She had never been strong to begin with. Once she fell hard. Within a year she was bedridden and so thin she was almost nothing but bones. The neighbors who saw her were frightened. No one could recognize the pretty young woman she had once been, and it was Chen Ping'an who cared for her. He was only that small, yet he bought medicine, brewed it, cooked rice, stir-fried vegetables. He did everything. He was so short back then that he had to stand on a stool to cook. And to save money for his mother's medicine, whenever there were herbs he could gather himself, he searched the mountains and fields for them. If he found extra, he sold the surplus to the apothecary. Madame Gu paused. One time, perhaps he ate the wrong herb. He was carrying his basket back into Mud Bottle Alley when he suddenly collapsed. Foam came from his mouth and he rolled around on the ground. The rest of us thought that family of 3 was truly going to disappear altogether. My mother-in-law was still alive then. She said perhaps it would be better if all 3 went together, so none of them would have to remain behind and suffer. At least they could reunite in the underworld. But somehow, the boy recovered by himself. He survived that illness. His mother, however, did not survive that winter. Oh, right, immortal master. Chen Ping'an was born on the 5th day of the 5th lunar month. Like a sudden summer downpour, Song Jixin clutched his chest with both hands, his handsome face twisted horribly. Yet, amid the pain there was a cruel smile. Fu Nanhua nearly lost patience and simply tapped the little bastard to death. In the end, however, the temptation of ascending in a single step and proving the Tao of longevity outweighed his personal likes and dislikes. He stopped. He spared the boy. Song Jixin gasped for air, eyes burning, a hoarse laugh escaping his throat. Fu Nanhua could not understand it. There seemed to be no hatred in the boy's gaze. Not that Fu Nanhua found that especially alarming. The road of cultivation was filled with strange people and stranger temperaments. Still, he asked, "What are you laughing at?" Song Jixin's breathing gradually steadied. He leaned back, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and said with shining eyes, "I was just imagining the near future. If I can gain an ability like yours, kill someone in the blink of an eye, I think I'll be happier than words can describe." Fu Nanhua smiled. As expected of someone he found worthy of being a fellow traveler. People like this were actually easy to deal with, as long as you remained above them. Yet the moment you became careless, they might climb straight over your head. Still, the young lord of Old Dragon City did not believe that after successfully obtaining an opportunity here, he could possibly fall behind a boy who before the age of 9 had never been able to leave this little town. Song Jixin glanced at the pot on the table and the half-filled pouch of coins. Then he raised his head. "Fu Nanhua, I have 2 conditions. If you agree to both, not only will I sell you the mountain demon pot, I'll also take out another object no less valuable." Fu Nanhua suppressed the joy in his heart and kept his voice as calm as possible. "Let's hear them." Song Jixin did not keep him in suspense. His first demand was startling enough to frighten most people senseless. "First, I want 3 full pouches of gold essence coins from you, not 2. Fu Nanhua answered without hesitation, agreed. Song Jixin stared directly into his eyes. Fu Nanhua smiled. "Believe me or don't. But before I leave today, you must also take out an object equal in value to 2 pouches of gold essence and let me inspect it personally." Song Jixin nodded. "Of course." Fu Nanhua asked, "And the second condition?" Song Jixin slowly said, "Kill someone for me." Fu Nanhua shook his head. "If you understand even how many coins should be in each pouch, then you should also know that people like us cannot casually kill someone in this town. If we do, we will be expelled immediately. Worse, part of our cultivation foundation may be stripped away, and the karmic opportunities connecting us to sages and immortal lineages may be severed. The consequences would be miserable beyond measure, and our families could lose every opportunity they have here as well." The corner of Song Jixin's mouth rose. "Don't refuse so quickly. You can wait and see how things develop." "How about that?" Fu Nanhua laughed. "Now you've made me curious. Who do you want dead?" Song Jixin answered half truthfully, half falsely, "I haven't decided yet." Fu Nanhua picked up the pot once more, feeling the smooth warmth of its surface beneath his fingertips. "Then I suppose I'll wait and see." Across the table, Song Jixin unconsciously rubbed his neck. His expression was terrible. Earlier, Jigui had escorted Cai Jinjian to the gate of Gu Can's courtyard before leaving to wander the streets alone. Cai Jinjian pushed open the Gu family's gate. The moment she stepped inside, she froze as though struck by lightning. She did not dare move, her eyes fixed on the old man sitting on the long bench. Her voice trembled. "Senior, are you the Cutting River True Lord who cultivates in seclusion at Bookslip Lake?" The old man asked. "How did you recognize this old man?" Cai Jinjian respectfully replied. "This junior is Cai Jinjian of Cloud Glow Mountain. 10 years ago, I followed my father to Bookslip Lake to witness the strange sight of the giant turtle emerging from the water. I was fortunate enough to see Senior from afar. The memory remains vivid even now." The old man nodded. "I see." Cai Jinjian's heart sank slightly. "True Lord, this junior wishes to." The storyteller, known as the Cutting River True Lord, gave her one indifferent glance. "For the sake of old ancestor Xianxia, this old man will overlook your uninvited entrance this time. There will not be a second. Leave the courtyard, and close the gate behind you." Cai Jinjian was silent for only a moment before nodding. This junior takes her leave, and she truly left just like that. She even remembered to close the gate, gently and carefully. Inside the courtyard, Gu Can's mother looked toward the closed gate and asked anxiously, "Immortal Master, that woman doesn't look like someone who will simply give up. Will this cause trouble?" The old man who bore the title True Lord sneered. "Once you've entered this small town, breathing, eating, farting, anything you do can bring trouble. Are you supposed to give up a great opportunity because of that?" The woman had no answer. The old man smiled. "Let me ask you something, Madam Gu. If you had the choice, would you rather Gu can cultivate at Cloud Glow Mountain, or follow me to Bookslip Lake?" "Don't answer yet." The old man raised a hand to stop her from responding too quickly. He spoke slowly. "Cloud Glow Mountain is only considered a second-rate sect on Eastern Treasured Vile Continent. But if you think that means it is insignificant, you would be gravely mistaken. Cloud Glow Mountain produces Cloud Root Stone, a true treasure of heaven and earth. Not only on Eastern Treasured Vile Continent, but in the entire world, there is only one place where it can be found. Because of that, Cloud Glow Mountain enjoys an exalted position. Everyone is willing to give them some face. Their ties with Daoist alchemical lineages in particular run very deep. As for this old man, I am merely a cultivator of Bookslip Lake. I occupy a single island. My disciples can be counted on one hand, and I have fewer than 100 servants." Madame Gu smiled calmly. Though no longer young, she still retained much of her charm. "The difference between me and that woman from Cloud Glow Mountain is probably like the difference between her and you, Immortal Master. How could I let Gu Can abandon a true blessed land and follow her out into the fields to scrape for a living?" The old man laughed loudly. Then he suddenly remembered something. His expression turned serious. "What is that other boy's background?" "Madame Gu, tell me everything you know. Better to prevent even the slightest unexpected problem." Madame Gu paused. She brushed a strand of hair back from her temple, before speaking softly. "That poor child is called Chen Ping'an. Both his parents were born and raised in this town. I was actually on good terms with his mother. She wasn't extraordinarily beautiful, but she had an excellent temperament. I don't think I ever saw her quarrel angrily with anyone. Her husband, on the other hand, wasn't much to look at. To be honest, he didn't seem worthy of her, but his pottery skills were good. If he hadn't died young, another 20 years might have been enough for him to become a master craftsman at one of the great dragon kilns. As for how he died, there are several stories. Some say that during a night of torrential rain, he feared something had happened at the kiln and rushed out in a panic. He slipped and fell into a stream. Others say he went to cut firewood, tried to take a shortcut into a mountain area sealed by the imperial court, and was eaten by wild beasts in the old forest. In any case, his body was never found. That man was the silent type. You could beat him with 3 sticks and still not get a fart out of him. But he was very good to his child. Every time he returned to town, he would bring Chen Ping'an some little gift, a toy drum, bodhisattva candy, an old pottery jar. All things considered, before the father died, their family of 3 lived a stable enough life," she continued. "After Chen Ping'an's father died, his mother probably became ill from grief. Her spirit and health collapsed quickly. She had never been strong to begin with. Once she fell hard. Within a year she was bedridden and so thin she was almost nothing but bones. The neighbors who saw her were frightened. No one could recognize the pretty young woman she had once been, and it was Chen Ping'an who cared for her. He was only that small, yet he bought medicine, brewed it, cooked rice, stir-fried vegetables. He did everything. He was so short back then that he had to stand on a stool to cook. And to save money for his mother's medicine, whenever there were herbs he could gather himself, he searched the mountains and fields for them. If he found extra, he sold the surplus to the apothecary." Madame Gu paused. "One time, perhaps he ate the wrong herb. He was carrying his basket back into Mud Bottle Alley when he suddenly collapsed. Foam came from his mouth and he rolled around on the ground. The rest of us thought that family of 3 was truly going to disappear altogether. My mother-in-law was still alive then. She said perhaps it would be better if all 3 went together, so none of them would have to remain behind and suffer. At least they could reunite in the underworld. But somehow, the boy recovered by himself. He survived that illness. His mother, however, did not survive that winter. Oh right, immortal master. Chen Ping'an was born on the 5th day of the 5th lunar month. The neighbors all say that is the most inauspicious day of the entire year, one that easily attracts unclean things and even brings misfortune upon the family. After his parents died, the family had no money left. Almost all the little objects his father had once brought home ended up scattered around the town, traded to children his own age in exchange for food. At this point, the old man finally spoke. The 5th day of the 5th month? Interesting. Let me calculate. His 5 fingers moved through divination signs, as though his sleeve contained heaven and earth. Seeing Madame Gu stare blankly, the old man smiled. Continue. She gave a small sound of acknowledgement. Because we'd been neighbors for so many years, the people in Mud Bottle Alley couldn't simply watch Chen Ping'an starve. They didn't dare bring him into their own homes, but from time to time they would send over a bowl of rice, a little food, things like that. Human heart is a fish, after all. To tell the truth, if not for the strange day he was born, which genuinely frightened people, who wouldn't have felt affection for such a sensible child. Of course, not every neighbor was kind. There were some with bad hearts who liked tormenting the boy. In the end, he had no choice but to become a kiln apprentice. You should know that before his mother died, she made him promise that even if he had to become a beggar in the future, he must never work at the great dragon kilns. For a child as obedient and filial as Chen Ping'an to break that promise, something serious must have forced him to it. The old man asked, "Do you know the names and birth dates of the boy's parents?" Madame Gu said she knew their names, but no one knew their exact birth dates. The old man said it did not matter. A short while later, he sneered, "Petty tricks, vicious little schemes." Madame Gu looked confused. The old man explained. The father did not die an ordinary death. Most likely, he accidentally learned one of this town's secrets. Unfortunately, his luck was not as good as your family's. His ancestral foundation was thinner than yours. In the end, for the sake of his son's safety, he secretly smashed the boy's life-bound porcelain vessel. That naturally caused a sect outside the town to suffer a loss. And that was a large investment. How could a mere kiln worker possibly repay it? So he paid with his life. One life was not enough, then came his wife's. The ridiculous part is that his death apparently mattered so little to certain people that they could not even be bothered to spend much effort hiding the truth. They used a crude spell to mislead and conceal what happened. Sloppy. They truly did not care about consequences. Madame Gu's face turned sorrowful. The old man saw through her thoughts at a glance and smiled. What? Feeling guilty? Regretting your choice? Madame Gu gave a miserable smile. Guilty? Yes. I watched that child grow up. How could I not feel guilty? But regret? Absolutely not. The old man nodded. That much I can see, Madame Gu murmured. If it were Chen Ping'an's mother standing where I am now, I believe she would make the same choice. The old man shook his head. Not necessarily. Without hesitation, Madame Gu raised her voice. She definitely would. The old man was not offended by her rudeness. He only sighed. Pitiful indeed the hearts of parents beneath heaven. The straw-sandaled boy sat by the doorway. Miss Ning, may I ask you a few things? Ning Yao leaned against the wall, sitting cross-legged with a short saber resting before her. Of course. But if it concerns secrets or personal matters, I won't answer, Chen Ping'an asked. When people like you come here, how long do you usually stay before leaving? Ning Yao frowned slightly. It depends. Some people are lucky enough to leave the same day. Some are unlucky enough to spend their whole lives here. If you insist on an estimate, I can give you one, but it may not be accurate. Take the 8 people in our group, for example. 2 of them are the sort born into wealthy families with more money than sense. Just looking at them, you can tell they didn't come here expecting to rush in and rush out. They'll probably stay in town for several days. That young nobleman with the jade pendant should have a smoother time of things. And there's one great fool who has set his whole heart on that well. Whether he succeeds depends on whether heaven feels like rewarding him. Chen Ping'an pressed. What about the other person? Who? Another tall woman. She's not very old. Ning Yao asked bluntly. You like her? Chen Ping'an smiled and did not answer. Ning Yao seemed to realize the question had been rather inappropriate. Her expression turned serious. I actually heard you talking with Daoist Lu. You and that woman have a grudge. So you want to take revenge? She sighed. Let me give you some advice. For someone like you who stands halfway up the mountain, there really isn't much difference between you and someone at the foot of the mountain in the eyes of those standing at the summit. It isn't only because they're arrogant. They truly do possess the qualifications to look down on you. Once they enter a land of weakened laws like this place, even without speaking of that woman from Cloud Glow Mountain, the child in the bright red robe could punch you in the chest and make you vomit a bowl full of blood. If you struck him with all your strength in return, I wouldn't say it would feel like a mere tickle, but at most he'd find it irritating. You absolutely would not injure his internal organs. As for why, it's difficult to explain clearly. Mostly because I'm not very good at explaining these things. Chen Ping'an sat with his back to the room and looked toward the courtyard gate. I want to know why she wanted to kill me. We clearly met for the first time that day. Ning Yao thought for a long while before answering. She may not be the sort of person who kills innocents for pleasure. How should I put it? On the road of cultivation, people climb mountains and cross rivers. Some paths are broad, some are narrow. There are grand roads beneath the sun, and there are single plank bridges. If someone walks too quickly and accidentally steps on an ant, the ant dies. If someone is hungry and catches a few fish from a great river, the fish die. If a cultivator gains some success in the Tao and casually uses a technique, birds, snakes, and other creatures may be killed by accident. I don't think I'm explaining this very well. Do you understand what I mean? Chen Ping'an gave a quiet acknowledgement. More or less. After that, the boy grew somber and looked toward the gate again. In truth, he did not understand at all. He could not understand why those people were able to treat the lives of others as if they meant nothing. A long time passed. Then Chen Ping'an turned back and smiled. If you don't mind, Miss Ning, you can stay here. If you need anything, just say so. What about you? I know someone. For the next couple of days, I'll go stay with him. His name is Liu Xianyang. He's my friend, my good friend. Ning Yao looked at the thin back of the boys sitting by the doorway and smiled. Thank you. Chen Ping'an grinned and shook his head. He did not say any polite words in return. After hesitating for a while, he finally gathered his courage and turned around again. Miss Ning, if one day I don't come back, please give my pouch of golden coins to Liu Xianyang. Ask him to help me look after this house from time to time. He doesn't need to clean it. Just repair it once in a while. Replace some roof tiles so the rain doesn't leak in. Don't let the walls collapse. Don't let the door rot too badly. And if possible, on New Year's Eve, it would be best if he could paste door gods on the entrance and spring couplets beside the door. If that's too much trouble, then it's fine if he doesn't. Ning Yao noticed that when Chen Ping'an spoke of door gods and spring couplets, an unusual light flickered in his eyes. Clearly, the orphan of Mud Bottle Alley had dreamed for many, many years of celebrating the new year with door gods on his own gate and spring characters beside it. His parents had been dead for that many years. He had dreamed of it for exactly that long. And so, once the boy had put down the last of his worries and untied the knot in his heart, he gently breathed out. He patted his knees and slowly stood. Inside the room, the flying sword resting in its sheath upon the table, suddenly trembled. When Fu Nanhua walked out of the room, he found the pretty maid sitting on a bench in the courtyard. She held an ear of corn in her hand and was feeding chickens. A mother hen wandered about with a flock of chicks, all of them pecking at the ground. When Fu Nanhua saw her, he smiled. Whether because she was shy by nature or simply cold-tempered, Jigui only tugged faintly at the corners of her mouth in response. Fu Nanhua opened the rear gate of the courtyard and found Cai Jinjian waiting outside in poor spirits. He turned and closed the gate behind him. Through the narrowing gap, he caught sight of the maid lifting her face to look over. Only then did Fu Nanhua suddenly notice that this servant girl Sumyeon, who should have been merely a poor country maid covered in dust and mud, possessed an unusually striking pair of eyes. They made her face seem like a flower opening at the beginning of spring. Still, Fu Nanhua thought little of it. Women of outstanding beauty, graceful curves, and elegant bearing had long since become commonplace to the young lord of Old Dragon City. Walking shoulder to shoulder with Cai Jinjian, he asked, "What happened? Things didn't go smoothly?" Opportunities like these are rarely easy to obtain. You can't expect every matter to be settled in a single attempt. There's no need to become discouraged. Cai Jinjian had been born with a soft, alluring charm. After entering cultivation, she had cleansed marrow and remade her bones. Her body alone was naturally far purer than that of ordinary mortal women. Women beneath the mountain might stun people at first glance, but in the end they were still mortal flesh. At this moment, however, the fairy of Cloud Glow Mountain wore a poor expression. Her mood was clearly bad. She had evidently swallowed a bellyful of anger in that little alley, and could not feel comfortable until she let some of it out. A senior expert got there before me. One of the local tyrants of Book Slip Lake, the Cutting River True Lord, Lu Zhimao. He didn't give me even the slightest room to negotiate. The moment we met, he invoked the name of my sect's founding ancestor just to pressure a junior like me. From beginning to end, I only managed to say a few sentences before he threw me out of Guqian's courtyard. Fu Nanhua became thoughtful. Let's wait until we're out of Mud Bottle Alley before talking. Cai Jinjian looked puzzled. Aren't all spells forbidden here? Fu Nanhua smiled. Everyone capable of coming here to seek opportunities has some hidden trump card. For young people like you and me, the situation isn't too bad. According to the rules of this town, the higher a person's cultivation, the more severely it is suppressed. Below the level of sage, the closer one's realm approaches sagehood, the weaker one becomes here. In theory, such a person might be reduced almost to the strength of a child. But have you considered this? What if a true expert is willing to damage his own cultivation just to use a divine ability? Do you truly think juniors like us could stop him? Cai Jinjian objected. There is a sage guarding this place. Would the Cutting River True Lord truly dare openly attack me? Fu Nanhua advised. We came here to form good karmic ties, not to make enemies. Even if our lives aren't in danger, offending senior cultivators is never a beautiful thing. Cai Jinjian was not someone who obsessed over one point once reason was explained to her. She nodded. Brother Fu is right. That is the more mature view. Then her face became bitter again. But I'm truly unwilling to accept it. I already gave away 10 pieces of cloud root stone. If I return empty-handed after all that, how am I supposed to explain myself to the ancestors of my sect? After leaving Mud Bottle Alley, Fu Nanhua and Cai Jinjian almost simultaneously felt their minds lighten. It was not a simple flash of inspiration. The two looked at each other, then both quickly looked away. Fu Nanhua, who had originally been extremely excited, became much calmer. He carefully reconsidered his entire journey. His alliance with Cai Jinjian should have left no trace. His transaction with Jixin should contain no trap either. It had been a fair exchange conducted according to the rules. The sage guarding this place had watched winds come and winds go, waters flow and waters pass, without interfering in such trivial matters. So where had that oppressive feeling come from? Could it have been the Cutting River True Lord, a name Fu Nanhua had never even heard before? Compared with Fu Nanhua's deep calculations, Cai Jinjian's thinking was much simpler. Frightened by his earlier warning, she now believed Lu Jimao truly had used some spell to monitor her. Fear suddenly seized her. Fortunately, she had only complained a little. She had not sworn vengeance or uttered any cruel threats. The two continued down the road, each carrying private thoughts. The farther they moved from Mud Bottle Alley, the lighter the heaviness in their hearts became. Fu Nanhua believed what burdened him was the weight of karmic opportunity and fortune. Cai Jinjian believed hers was the burden of her family and sect. Looking up at the memorial archway in the distance, Fu Nanhua asked curiously, "The Cutting River True Lord of Bookslip Lake? How is it that I have absolutely no impression of him? Old Dragon City may lie at the extreme south of this continent, but the title of True Lord is prestigious wherever one goes. Even if I were ignorant and poorly informed, I should have heard something." Cai Jinjian lowered her voice and sneered. "What True Lord? He's only someone who slipped in through a side door and borrowed the reputation of others. A sanctimonious fraud. He has no true qualifications to bear the title of True Lord. It's little more than a name people use in idle conversation over tea and wine. With the discernment of Emperor Yuanwu, he would naturally never formally confer such a title on someone like that. The rank of True Lord isn't cabbage sold by the roadside. Granting the title to one person can mean the position won't return for 200 years. And the sect behind Emperor Yuanwu spends resources like flowing water. By the time the authority reached His Majesty's hands, only 2 True Lord positions remained. How could he casually hand one over to some backdoor climber trying to purchase fame? Fu Nanhua gave a sound of realization. So that's how it is. Every True Lord stationed within a dynasty could help a sovereign gather, suppress, and strengthen national fortune. A Daoist True Lord was almost the equivalent of the highest religious authority within a mortal dynasty. The pillar generals of the military school and the grand scholars of Confucianism were offices of comparable stature. Cai Jinjian asked as though casually, "And what about Jixin?" Fu Nanhua replied just as casually, "That boy? Ambitious, naturally intelligent, backed by something powerful." But his vision, Cai Jinjian smiled. "Too small?" Fu Nanhua laughed. "I wouldn't say small, only not large enough." The two arrived beneath the memorial archway. Fu Nanhua's spirits rose. He murmured, "The time when heaven and earth begin to merge is almost here." Cai Jinjian looked up at the 4 characters carved above. "Seek nothing outside yourself." A strange emptiness filled her heart. The enlightenment she had experienced in Mud Bottle Alley seemed to have been returned completely to this town. The feeling irritated her beyond measure. Jixin's home was considered one of the larger residences in Mud Bottle Alley, with a high courtyard and side rooms flanking the main hall. The plaque in the central hall read, "Hall of Cherishing the Distant." There was no signature. Jixin had always felt that, judging from the calligraphy alone, it could not have been written by anyone truly important. At this moment, master and maid were inside Jixin's room. The boy was packing his belongings. Jigui stood in the doorway and asked gently, "Young master, did the business go through?" Song Jixin set down a string of bells and returned to the only chair in the room. He clasped both hands behind his head and crossed his legs. Fu Nanhua of Old Dragon City isn't exactly stupid. From the beginning, he didn't treat me as some sheltered fool with money to burn. But he isn't very clever either. He tried to build a personal connection with me, truly amusing. Then I casually tricked him once, and his rat tail showed immediately. He thought that by acting mysterious and using a few little tricks, he could build enough pressure to frighten this young master. Compared with Master Qi, who leaves people guessing no matter how long they think, Fu Nanhua is 10,000 miles short. Jigui said, 10,000 miles? Young master, isn't that a little exaggerated? Song Jixin pulled a face. Fine, then he's 10 mud bottle alleys short. The boy handed his maid a pouch. Look at this. This is the money pouch mentioned in the secret letter. That Chen fellow next door had one too. At the time I figured that having such enormous wealth fall onto his head might not be a good thing. And sure enough, hasn't it already provoked that dog man and woman pair? I think Chen is going to have plenty of bitterness to swallow next. Oh right, Jigui. The man who came to our house claimed to be the young lord of Old Dragon City. From the way he spoke and acted, he's at least not some useless embroidered pillow who only knows how to play around. And this jade pendant, he called it Old Dragon Dispensing Rain or something like that. It's definitely valuable. Song Jixin patted the translucent green jade pendant now hanging at his waist. In his heart, he felt that the distance between himself and Master Qi had narrowed by another step. Jigui opened the exquisite embroidered pouch. Young master, can you get more of these coins? Song Jixin smiled. You like them? Jigui pinched one coin between two fingers, shook it lightly, and smiled with satisfaction. They're bright and golden, pleasant to look at. Song Jixin could not help laughing. That's enough to make you happy? Fine, fine. If you like them, I'll get you several more pouches. These coins come in several kinds. There are suppression coins placed on roof beams, spring welcoming coins hung with peach wood charms, offering coins hidden in the bellies or placed in the hands of divine statues. Ordinary people have their customs. The immortals have their own explanations. Jigui narrowed her eyes into two crescent moons and asked, "What about Chen Ping'an's pouch?" Song Jixin frowned. Him? Noticing the strange change in her young master's mood, Jigui carefully returned the coin, tightened the pouch, and asked softly, "What's wrong?" Song Jixin pursed his lips. He clasped his hands behind his neck and gently squeezed while muttering, "Nothing. Just remembered a few little things. As for the Chen fellow, there's no hurry. Better not get ourselves dragged into trouble. But that bookworm Zhao Yao probably received a pouch too. He's easy to fool. This young master guarantees I'll get you another one from him." Jigui still looked slightly curious, but Song Jixin had clearly lost interest in explaining. Seeing that, the girl was wise enough not to keep asking. She left the room and went into the courtyard. There, she spotted the lizard she had always found irritating. It lay half dead on the ground, basking in sunlight, occasionally stretching its neck as though thoroughly enjoying itself. A burst of anger flared in the girl. She strode over and planted one foot directly on the lizard's head. Her toes ground down hard. The poor creature whimpered without end. When she finally lifted her foot, it immediately scrambled away, fleeing headlong without daring to stop. The ocher yellow lizard in her own house, the golden carp that had greedily eaten what had been mistakenly left in the basket, the black loach gookin kept in a hole, metal, wood, water, fire, earth. Of the 5, 3 had now appeared. Watching the stupid lizard scurry around in panic, Jigui curled her lip in contempt. Idiot. Ice in Gukan's courtyard, the old man and Madame Gu still sat facing one another. The old man extended a hand and studied the lines running across his palm. His mood was not good. After a while, he withdrew his hand and looked up. "Madame Gu, are there many women like you in this town, woman who married ordinary countrymen?" She shook her head. "Probably not many. At least around Mud Bottle Alley and Apricot Blossom Alley. I'm the only one." The old man hesitated. In the end, he decided to reveal a few heavenly secrets to her. For girls, the ages of 6 and 12 are 2 major gates. For boys, the ages are 9 and 18. The first gate must be crossed through one's own fate. At the second, outside help can still provide a push. When that time comes, the more support a child has to rely on, the better. That is why wealthy and powerful families enjoy an enormous advantage. To open the door, to enter the hall, to step into the inner chamber, those are 3 separate matters. For the first 2, true success depends largely on karmic opportunity and fate, especially that very first step. Whether one succeeds or fails depends almost entirely on whether heaven chooses to grant a reward. Madame Gu's eyes filled with delight. If Gu Kan was fortunate enough to catch a mortal master's eye, does that mean he can take that first step on his own? The old man smiled without quite smiling. As long as a child was born and raised in this town, it means their innate bones and natural aptitude are not especially outstanding. Your Gu Can may not be 9 years old yet, but he is no exception. Madame Gu's face instantly became ugly. The old man lifted one foot and rubbed it lightly against the ground. Then he smiled. Relax. Poor innate bones are important, of course. But they are not everything. If heaven finds someone pleasing, then even a stray dog by the roadside or a weed growing in a ditch may slowly cultivate the great Tao, and one day, ascend to the heavens in a single step. This time, the town has made an exception and allowed so many outsiders to enter because it had no other choice. Imagine a single mu of farmland. No matter how rich the soil or how favorable the climate, if it is cultivated continuously for several thousand years plowed, planted, harvested, year after year, and if several generations grow greedy and exhaust the soil for immediate profit, then one day that land will inevitably decline and become barren. The feng shui foundation of this place is now approaching its final great harvest. When a person is near death, there are moments when the last light suddenly burns brightest. At such a time, essence, ki, and spirit can surge to their most powerful state. Your Gu Can happens to be benefiting from that final burst. The opportunity he has received is far greater than you can imagine. It exceeds by far what even the most naturally gifted children of this town received in earlier generations. Madame Gu's lips trembled. She forcibly suppressed the joy rising inside her. Her watery eyes carried a hint of mature charm. The old man glanced at her. Of course, don't let greed cloud your head. Your son is absolutely not the only one to receive a great opportunity. To put it bluntly, across an eastern treasured vile continent this vast, if there truly exists someone qualified to monopolize all of this fortune, then that person probably hasn't even been born yet.